From September of 23 to December of 23, I kind of start venturing back out into the world. And it's mainly because the PT has eliminated my migraines. I am like able to do things. I am functional. I can like sit in places. I have to like kind of like white knuckle grip it, but I can do it. I do not walk places anymore. I basically understand that like my body can go like 2 blocks and that's it. And I then start considering that I have POTS. And it's because I found Mariah's videos on TikTok, which were immensely helpful in helping me make sense of what the hell was going on. And she was the first content creator that I had seen that discussed POTS. And I had no idea what it was. I just knew that every single thing that she was talking about was what I was experiencing in the present day. And I had a integrative health doctor who basically was like, hey, I can't help you. I don't know what's going on. I suspect that you have POTS, so I'm going to give you the name of this neurologist. And I saw Dr. David Younger at, he's affiliated with NYU, but he has a private practice. And I could not have been more standoffish of going to this appointment. And that's mainly because he wasn't like a hospital doctor. So all of my doctors had been through Weill Cornell. And the fact that he was like a private practice doctor, I was like, what do I do with this? What's happening? And this man could not have been nicer to me. He spent over like an hour and a half talking to me about everything that I have just shared with you guys. And at the end of the appointment, he's like, okay, we're doing a tilt table test. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yep, we're going to do a tilt table test and we're just going to like figure it out. And my immediate reaction was like, no, because my experience with doctors was like, well, you don't do the diagnosing here. It's going to take 2 weeks. You have to go somewhere else. You have to do all these things, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden to have somebody just say, do you want to know what's going on with you right now? My initial instinct was to like completely reject it. But I'm really happy that I was convinced to do it, essentially. Like he had to be like, it's okay. Like you don't have to do it right now, but if you want to, it's here for you. And we did a tilt table test, which basically means that you lay down flat, they strap you in to like keep you safe, and they measure your heart rate. And I believe your oxygen levels, and they measure your heart rate when you're laying down, and then they tilt you to a standing position and you just hang out there. They measure your heart rate there, and then they tilt you back down. In my case, I became faint-ish when I was tilted up. When I was tilted back down, I bottomed out. And to the point where he was like, that is concerning. Does this happen to you? And that's scary, right? Like no one wants to hear like, hey, when I lay down, like everything just kind of like stops for a moment in time and then I kick back in. But it was very relieving to get the diagnosis of having POTS because it meant that I was not losing my mind. It meant that like what I was experiencing was real and there was a name for it. And from there, he recommended that I go see Dr. Lauren Napany in New York. And to be perfectly honest, I put it off. And I put it off because I basically was like, I am done with doctors. I don't want to see another doctor. I don't want to have any more conversations about POTS. If I have POTS, I'm going to do my research on it. I'm going to figure out a way to heal. So I started doing the Benjamin Levine protocol for exercise, and that made a world of difference. It was incredibly difficult. I hated every moment of the first 3 months of it. I hated the fact that I used to be somebody who could walk miles and do yoga effortlessly, and now I had to sit in a reclined bike, and it was hard for me to do that. Like it was actually hard for me to move my body to a rate that I could have done effortlessly 2 years ago. So it was a very humbling experience, but also incredibly frustrating. And in doing the Levine protocol, I finally got around to seeing, like after I had felt stable enough, I basically booked with Dr. Napany's associate, Dr. Jan. And this is on me, okay? This has nothing to do with Dr. Napany or Dr. Jan. I literally was like, I don't want help, so I really don't care who I see because you guys are just gonna tell me that I have POTS and there's nothing for you to do. So I basically rejected help again. And Dr. Jan could not have been nicer. She was so sweet. She basically like reviewed my whole case. I had an appointment with her, and I was supposed to have a follow-up appointment with her, and she calls me and she's basically like, listen, you need to see Dr. Nappany. And again, I'm like, I don't want to. Okay, like I'm done. I'm done seeing doctors. You just told me that I have POTS. That's it. And she's like, Lauren, you need to go see Dr. Nappany. This is her specialty. I'm like, fine. Again, my stubbornness is not my best trait. I finally see Dr. Nappany this past August, and she was lovely. She could not have been kinder. But one of the biggest things that came out of our conversation is that she was like, what if you have POTS as a result of an injury? You don't have POTS as a result of dysautonomia. And something clicked, because I had been saying to her, I only get episodes now when I do like chin to chest, or if I like curve into a crunch, which I just like avoid doing now because I don't want to have an episode. And she was like, have you ever heard of like jugular vein compression? Nope. Has anyone ever told you that it's possible that like you could potentially have this going on, and that your symptoms are triggered by very specific movements or the way of like you are positioned, and that there could be potentially a solution for this? No. And so now I am in this space of like evaluating, is it POTS or is it jugular vein compression, which like is a TBD. Don't know. And there's like other doctor's visits that I need to have to like evaluate what was going on. But one of the things is that it can make a world of difference when you have a doctor listen to you versus when you have a doctor look at you and anticipate what they think that you have. Because I had had so many cases of invalidation. And like, for the record, if I have POTS and it's not jugular vein compression, cool. I'll handle it. I will figure out a way to make my daily functioning better, as I have for the last 3 years on my own. It is just that it makes a world of difference to have a doctor look at you and say, I understand what you are saying, not I'm looking at you and I'm telling you that this is what it is, without ever actually paying attention to the specifics. And just that like shift changed how I started thinking about how I navigate my day to day. And it also made a world of difference in me trusting myself, because I had been saying from day one, hey, I had this injury. I hurt my shoulder and I hurt my back when I was lifting boxes, and I suspected that it was a CSF leak, and my original neurologist disregarded it. She told me that I was crazy to think that I could potentially have a CSF leak, and that she was not going to test for it or scan for it. And then to have, if you have jugular vein compression, to have CSF restriction be part of it. Like, are you kidding? I knew 3 years ago that something was wrong, and you are telling me that now I am right. But it took me 3 years and 10 plus imaging scans and 40 doctor's appointments and 3 trips to the ER to figure out what the hell was going on. That's absurd.